Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Uplifting Content podcast. The topic is Let's Talk About the Art of Tantra. And my guest today is the amazing Dawn Cartwright, who I had the didn't even plan that, of doing some workshops with her at the Bhakti Festival a few months ago. So, Dawn, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great, and it's wonderful to be here with you. It's kind of fun to bring some of that bhakti bliss into our city, into our everyday.
Yes, it was my first time there, and you've been to a few of those. Is that right? Have you been?
I've been teaching since the beginning, since we started 10 years ago. Yeah, and it's just getting bigger and better all the time.
It was very packed. It was awesome. So just to start these interviews off, I really like to ask my guests to share a bit about themselves, sort of your story, journey into how you're doing what you're doing, so people have a bit of context.
Yeah, well, it's like you and I were talking about before we started today, that relationships are so important. And I've always been someone who loves love. I mean, who doesn't love love, right? And I also love sex. I love my body. I love pleasure. And right in my mid to late 20s, I started having these flow state experiences during sex, except for I didn't have any context for it. But I just knew that when relationship was really flowing and sex was really a mutually positive experience, that the rest of my life just took off. And there was one particular day I was with my very passionate Colombian lover, and everything just sort of stopped. And it was that, that balance of perfection that we sometimes feel when we're making love. And I realized there was more to sex than I had even imagined. And at that moment, I said, whatever this is the whole reason I'm on the planet. And it's the only thing that I want to do for my work.
Wow. So what was the journey? What were you doing before? And then what was the journey into your work now?
Before, I was a corporate art consultant. So I was selling art. Yeah, and I was doing marketing, so I was like a marketing consultant. And my life was a lot of going out dancing with friends on the weekends, working hard 9 to 5 during the week. I had a sense of there being some greater potential to being a woman and to pleasure, but I wasn't actualizing that. But that morning in lovemaking, and I think a lot of us have some of these epiphanies, in our sex, in moments of sex, I realized, I feel like I have the courage now to make this my life. And I made that decision.
I too, like you, very much enjoy sex. And I didn't realize this until a best friend had told me, someone that I'd known for years, that she actually couldn't orgasm during sex. And she hadn't for I don't think she had at all. And I couldn't believe that was the case. And I'm learning more and more that there are so many women who aren't enjoying sex, who aren't kind of relaxing. And you're telling me about this flow state. And I haven't been in a relationship for a long time. So I feel like that is something that I'm really longing for in a sexual partner, like someone that I'm with. So it's a more deeper connection. There's just so many women and people, I'm sure men too, that aren't having that experience. What's been your work like with people who deal with that?
Yeah, thank you so much for saying and being so courageous to share kind of your own longing. It's a longing that we all have. And to be honest with you, even the couples that I'm working with who are in very, strong relationships are still hungering for something more. And our world isn't set up for us to make the kind of connections in our body that lead to not only sexual pleasure, but also a fulfilling sense of connection with our own North Star, whatever that is, whatever's tuning us in and turning us on in life. I think they say there's 25% of women who've never orgasmed at all. And I would say that's probably conservative. I'd say there's many more women who've never had that experience. And then when you put on top of it, orgasming in sex with another person, that just adds a whole other level and layer of complication and pressure to have that experience of letting go. And it's about relationship. You know, it all starts with the relationship that we have inside our own bodies in a very specific way. And then the relationship and how we can be masterful in creating relationships where both people are exploring their ecstatic potential.
So I'm going to touch on that because based on what we did in your workshops, but what is the type of relationship that we need to be having with ourselves, and how do you help people with that?
Exactly. You know, I think we've gone through a period where we've focused a lot on the psychology of relationship, and we've sort of done a lot of work. I feel like we've done some good work there. Now I think it's time to focus on something a little more specific that I think is going to make it a lot easier for people to achieve the kind of relationships they want. That's to realize that our bodies are complex, but they're simple. We are beings who are taking in sensory information. I'm taking you in right now. You're taking me in right now. Our audience is taking us both in. So we're receiving information about our environment and the people in it. At the same time, we have a sense of what's possible. We all have the sense of what we're capable of. And we want that. We want to achieve it. So through the practice of Tantra, we're learning how to create a communication bridge between those two parts of us in very specific ways, between the sensing part of our body and the awareness part of our brain, the part of our brain that knows we're having an experience. So what we need in this relationship with ourselves is to turn on our sensitivity. You know, we learn to kind of dampen it down, and you're supposed to be prim and proper and sit up straight and don't make waves and things like that. But we're wild animals, you know, deep inside, we're primal beings. So how do we do both? How are we graceful and also sensual and wild and primal? How do we let ourselves take in one another? Because we are always communicating, even when we're not using words. Primal sensitivity happening between us and someone that we're attracted to, between us and our lover. And Tantra teaches us how to not only cultivate and increase that conversation, but also how to make it more accessible and how to receive it from each other.
Now I see it as the bigger societal issue that we have, because you're saying about that needs to have that sensitivity. And I just keep seeing that there's so much stress and so much things going on in the world that people are doing the opposite. They're numbing themselves with drugs and alcohol and distractions to kind of, I guess, shut down, which might explain why there's been this disconnect in how we feel about ourselves and other people. So, I mean, what are ways that people can connect with that? And what might be helpful is, like, what is Tantra?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Tantra there's lots of ways to describe Tantra. And first of all, I want to give you two main classifications, because this is something I think a lot of people don't know. There's Neo-Tantra, which are the practices that I teach. This is focused on human sexuality, relationships, intimacy, and energy cultivation. It's the newer Tantra. It's a way of realizing our potential, using sex as sort of a concentrated manifestation of who we are. Formal Tantra, classical Tantra, is something completely different. It's ancient practices coming out of the Hindu culture, based on yantras, mantras, and specific ways of connecting yantra and mantra to realize the beginning of the universe in every instant. So we're allowing ourselves to do these practices as classical tantrikas so that we're seeing how the universe bursts into being every instant, right?
And so is the classical one the thing that, like, all the diagrams in the books? Is that the sort of classical?
The diagrams in the book, when you see the geometric figures, that's classical Tantra. Neo-Tantra is when you're learning about sexual practices and Taoist practices for energy cultivation, ejaculation control, orgasm mastery. All those practices are Neo-Tantra. The two are not connected, although Neo-Tantra is influenced by classical Tantra. Yeah, so it's really important for us to make that distinction. I teach Neo-Tantra, so I am focusing on energy cultivation practices, relationship building practices, humanistic psychology practices, like ways that we can actualize our potential as human beings and lovers. Tantra, the classical practice, does the same thing, but it's an esoteric practice that is transmitted guru to disciple.
Interesting. So in that way, is it like a conversation, or is the guru and disciple having sex?
The guru and the disciple are in like a very old way of being together, where the guru will be enacting these rituals of devotion to the yantra, the geometric figures. And the disciple is there learning as the puja goes on. So it's kind of like an apprenticeship. And you're learning these very scientific, very beautiful devotional practices, not through having sex with your guru, but through studying with them.
Gotcha.
And then it's helpful to sort of take apart that Neo-Tantra is the sexual practice. Tantra is the esoteric, meditative, yogic practice. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So we were talking about how to it helps to kind of tap into our sensitivity and to heighten that. How do you work with people to help them tap into that and connect to that more?
Yeah. Well, one of the first things you touched on earlier, and that's for us to start to notice how we're numbing ourselves. To really... I think it's nice first to, I'll ask you, what is one of your favorite things to do? What do you love to do?
Being around my friends.
Yeah.
Being in nature.
Yeah. So there you go. Automatically, you named for me 2 things that are going to put you into a more ecstatic relationship with your body. And if you move those 2 things to the top of your list, maybe they already are, but usually our work is at the top of our list.
Totally. I work at home a lot, and that's not where I want to be energetically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're living in an amazing city. Here in Los Angeles, there are so many exciting opportunities. And it's a little bit challenging to really get clear about what I called earlier our North Star. Your North Star is meaningful personal connection with your parents and meaningful personal connection with nature. So put those 2 things first every single day, even if it's just for an hour in the morning. You're going to notice that your body-brain connection and bridging starts to change. It's really not hard. Discipline.
See, I can do that. That could be just going for a hike or a walk and talking to a friend at the same time. Boom, I can do that.
Done and done. But our brains get excited about the neurochemicals that we receive when we get up in the morning and get on Facebook or Instagram and we start the social media cascade. There's all that reward circuitry, and that takes over, right? That becomes where our attention wants to go. We're like little mice in a little maze, and we just going over to the sweets. So we have to discipline ourselves to realize what gives us sustainable, lasting pleasure. And that's the connections that we have. So just by you restructuring your life so that you're hiking with friends for an hour a day, you're going to start to be more orgasmic. I guarantee it. I have seen this happen over and over again. And I just want you to know, I do these practices too, you guys. I just finished teaching a 7-week class. I'm having the orgasms of my life now.
Wow.
7 years of age, the most unbelievable orgasms. And it's coming from the body and the brain need to communicate. The brain needs to know that we're feeling sensual pleasure. Posting on Instagram is not giving us sensual pleasure, typically. Right? Hiking with your friends, you're getting all this input, the smells of nature, the sound of your friends' voices. The sound of your friends' voices are literally waking up parts of your body, waking up the limbic brain, which builds memory, and it's the ecstatic part of the brain. So you are wired for pleasure. if you'll just turn your attention there, you'll start to create pathways where your body will begin to prefer it. This creates a sustainable feedback loop in you, and you're going to constantly build on that pleasure until you are the rockin' successful woman that you are, and an intense pleasure and connected with your friends and nature all the time.
Oh my, I'm excited.
Literally and figuratively.
In every way. This is fantastic. I'm just going to take a quick second. Dawn has kindly offered to give away one of her DVDs, Tantra Daily Practice digital download, to one of the listeners of this podcast. So we'll have the links to enter that giveaway in the notes. And so we'll be running that for a month. So if you're interested in sort of delving more and learning more, and enter to that. And we can also, at the end, I'd like to talk a bit about the courses that you have too. Yes. So a couple of things. One of them is you were saying about like feeling this pleasure all the time. And I feel like certain people, there's a shame about, just seeking pleasure. And that's like a cultural thing, a religious thing, family, like there's all sorts of reasons that we have these pressures. How do you, and for me personally too, like I'm always single because I've not met the right person, but I like sex. So I have sex with people that I'm not in a relationship with. And then sometimes I'm okay with what I'm doing because I'm with people that I care about and I trust. But there's sometimes where I start to think, should I not be? Is it, how do you approach this kind of the ideas around shame and sexuality for people?
Yeah. Well, I think that I'm so glad you brought it back to this, because there are so many people who are not experiencing pleasure, and they are longing for connection. They're longing for sex. And they're also, because they haven't met the right person, they're kind of wondering, well, do I just wait? Do I just put it on hold? Because there's shame put on us for having sex outside a relationship, or not saving ourselves for the one, or something like that. And all of this shame and guilt that's put on us sexually is what is being implanted so that we feel like we need something outside ourselves in order to be happy. So you keep following your North Star, which is to enjoy your body, enjoy sex with friends, wait for the one in order to have a relationship, you're actually moving in the direction of your North Star. You're moving in the direction of what's meaningful for you. This is bringing you online as the woman that you are. And the shame is sort of like, if you just stayed in your apartment and never went out at all, then in a way there's depression, there's a loss of connection. And then you start to spiral down, and then you are much easier to sell products to, and magazines and different things that define who you are. And I think the key is to realize that pleasure and sexual pleasure is what we're built for. And it happens in many ways. And you can get intense sexual pleasure by making love with a friend, or cuddling with a friend, or even having a really deep, meaningful conversation with a friend. Hiking, as you discovered, spoke about earlier, is a way that we exercise the pelvic floor, especially if you go for a walk on the beach and you're on the uneven terrain. You're literally sending these healthy signals to your pelvic floor. The more you do that, the more open you are to the person who's looking for you. Staying home and kind of keeping yourself cloistered isn't going to help you grow. Because every time you're making love with one of your friends, you get a little input about what you really want.
It's true. It's true. And I'm very clear on, again, just sort of, like I'm at a good, like, I think when I was younger, I was definitely having sex with people because I was lonely and I was desperate for a connection, and I wasn't in a good place, and it was for the wrong reasons. And now I'm much clearer on how I feel and what I want. I also don't drink as much, so it's not like I'm drunk and doing things. I'm like making a clear choice that I want to do this. And I think that's super important. But through having the sex that I've had, I do know what I want and what is great. And like, there's so much more of a way to go, which I discovered through doing your workshop. But but yeah, when I hear from people that say that they don't orgasm or that they don't enjoy sex or they can't communicate what they want with a partner and all these things, I'm like, wow, that's only come from my experiences and then feeling comfortable saying things. So I'm glad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're really wise in your friendship relation, your friends with benefits relationships, let's say.
Mm.
Created a very safe, loving place to learn about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there aren't those kind of, I have to perform in a certain way to keep this man or woman who might be my life partner. You've taken that pressure off, and it's more likely that you're going to communicate honestly. You're going to put your pleasure first. You're going to be curious about your partner, not because you're trying to keep them, but because you want to get to know them. And that's what relationship is meant to be. But we've turned it into a transaction and sort of a fairy tale that we're just looking for the white horse and the prince to carry us into the sunset. And so we've stopped seeing it as a reciprocal relationship between two caring, loving people.
Yeah.
This is another way that our body starts to wake up and our brain starts to actually process and recognize more pleasure in our relationships. So the women and men who aren't experiencing that pleasure, I would really invite them to spend more time with friends and maybe have sensual, cuddle time, if not sex, time of doing some of the Tantra practices. And it gives us our legs, it gives us confidence and also a feeling of community. Wonderful, sensual, loving community to learn about yourself. And this is how we used to learn about sex. We used to be tribal. And we all lived together in the cave or in the big tents. And we would make love and see other people making love. And we learned about ourselves in that way. And there wasn't shame. Very normal. And I think we're ready to bring that back. It's not about perfection and looking good anymore. It's about feeling good.
Right. I'm so glad you touched on that where we learn about sex, because now a lot of young people are learning about sex from porn. And I heard something recently that was, somebody said, a friend that said that young girls are now actually, he said that they're watching more porn, but what I think he meant was they are being more conditioned by porn than guys are and feeling like they have to behave the way that females in porn are behaving. And so then there's this becoming this sort of kids growing up thinking that these kind of derogatory ways of having sex are how to be with people. How have you experienced that? Do you work with young people very much, or what do you say to things like that?
I mean, I'll tell you a story. Several years ago, I saw a young man, a wonderful young man with a great career, completely healthy, but he could not get an erection with a partner. At all. Could not get an erection with a partner. There was nothing wrong. He'd been to the doctor, and it was because of porn use. So hyper-stimulated by the images of pornography that he had a loving partner. He wanted a relationship with her, but he couldn't consummate. And so porn is programming our brain to perceive something unreal as real. We have mirror neurons. So when we're watching someone having sex, we can feel it in our bodies. Now, the porn that we see is very titillating, but it's not connected. So our brains are absorbing that and creating sort of like an inner scenario that that's how sex is supposed to be. So that when we have a connection, it doesn't match up with what we experienced while watching porn, and our bodies can't perform.
Yeah.
So it's very, a little bit of porn for fun with a partner, that's a different thing. I'm talking about when porn is watched repeatedly and as a sexual outlet. Yeah. So I think that the women today also, what's happening, I'm not saying this is true with all porn actors. I think some of them are experiencing pleasure and they've integrated the two. But there are many who disconnect in order to film.
Yeah.
So when women are seeing that, they're reading the woman's facial expressions. They're reading her body language. They're not just seeing what's happening on the screen. And then they're learning to act in that way. So this young man, when he came to see me, when I would talk to him, he had a blank stare. he couldn't connect.
Mm.
And he would actually even look to the side, which is sort of like they're kind of like diverting back to a memory instead of being present with me. And this is happening in many ways in our culture now. Everybody's with their phone. Everyone's somewhere else.
Yeah.
When we're somewhere else, this communication between the brain and the body, which gives rise to pleasure, is broken.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it makes me sad. So what I really enjoyed about your workshop is just there was one exercise where we got with a partner and we were staring into each other's eyes. That was really profound. I was partnered with women on both occasions, so it wasn't even a sexual thing, but I still just found such connection from it, and it kind of made me think there's so much more to sex than I've not even gone down that road yet. Staring into each other's eyes and just thinking that I've not done that with someone for a while. And then another thing that I really loved was asking consent, asking sort of where people feel comfortable being touched. That was a really beautiful thing. And then just the, slow, gentle touching people all over the body in the areas that they're okay with being touched, was just so beautiful. Are those the types of things that you sort of leave people with? Can you share a bit more about some of the practices that you teach so that maybe people can try those?
You're such a beautiful neo-tantrika.
I'm sold. I'm going to start coming to your courses. So I don't even have a partner, but I want to do it.
I have so many amazing single men and women who come to the
class. Okay. Even more sold. You never told me I could meet a man there.
Really incredible people. It's entrepreneurs and musicians and just like the coolest, most
great.
Yeah. Right. So exactly. Didn't you discover consent is so intimate. Yeah. And it's so exciting because we want to know what the other person is comfortable with and we want to be clear in communicating. So in the classes, we do all kinds of exercises to really communicate who we really are and to discover how it feels to be accepted and met there. Mm-hmm. And then when we feel accepted and met, once we stated, then we're like, maybe I'm going to open up a little more. Maybe I'll make eye contact a little longer and sort of let myself go from frozen to melted while I'm making the eye contact. Maybe in the touch, I can let someone touch my hair, even though that feels very intimate to me. Mm-hmm. And like you with your friends, start to learn more about myself. And the more I learn about myself, the more likely I am going to attract partners who meet me there. It's when it's all shut down and shut off and I haven't warmed it up. In our last series here in Santa Monica, we were studying about receptivity, and we were looking at, it's not just about giving in love. How does it feel? It's so vulnerable because you can't control so much being on the receiving side. This person's giving you a gift. And so we learned how to be receptive and appreciative and also very confident in being ourselves. And we did these practices where we learned how to sense pleasure in the body through Taoist practices, waking up the kidney channels, which are sexual sensitivity channels. Let me tell you, that puts a major charge in your orgasm right there. And then we also allowed ourselves to feel inside what we're capable of. We know there's a sexual place that we can go. We may have never let ourselves go there. So we visualized it top down. We imagine it. While at the same time we feel pleasure bottom up. We're sensing pleasure. And we create this amazing connection between the brain. And we begin to ignite these flow states, which take us into not only mastery, but also deep intimacy. In fact, in the last class, I had us all walk around the room, kind of like what we did at Bhakti Food.
Yeah.
So fun. And I talked about, this is our last class of 7 weeks. And this has been a really beautiful time together. And just bringing ritual and meaning, I'm telling you, the men were even more touched than the women. The men softened. They became so even more loving and affectionate. They were helping the women walk through the room. They were sharing how much it meant to meet every woman. Their hearts completely opened.
Wow.
And I just saw, like, we want to be
Yes,
this.
of course we do. Yeah, yeah. We
We
all
just,
are longing for that connection and, yeah, intimacy.
yeah. And to let that be, like we talked about before, the top priority. It really is okay that your body, your pleasure, and your relationships are number one. I promise you, I am living proof that you will then magnetize success in your business beyond your wildest dreams. They are not two separate things.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm definitely down to master that. Excellent. So what was this 7-week course? What are the ones that are coming up? Because now I want to join one.
Yeah, the 7-week class is it's my laboratory. It's where I'm experimenting all the time. It's called Sex Actualization. I made that name up, which I love. And it starts again in May. So, because I'm traveling so much, but there's a new series starting May 30th. So definitely you do not want to miss that one. And the first class of the 7-week series, people can come and just give it a try, see if it works for them. Yeah. And then before that, March 2nd and 3rd, I'm teaching my level 1, Be Fully Alive. It's called Wake Up Your Sexual Circuitry. And it's all the basics that you need for a tantric practice. And that's 2 full days.
That sounds okay. Perfect.
Super full on.
And are you at some fun events in different parts of the country or the world, or are you traveling for Christmas and holidays?
Yes, I'm on my way to Denver tomorrow. I'm teaching a whole weekend masterclass there at Samadhi Yoga. I'm then going to India and taking some students with me to learn the classical practices at an ashram in Andhra Pradesh. And I'll teach at Bhakti Fest and Shakti Fest again this year. And there's lots of ecstatic happenings.
That's incredible. It sounds like I love it because you completely had a life sort of transformation and are doing the thing you love. Just to end with, I'm curious for anyone I was going to say for anyone out there that's kind of thinking of making that change, what you're saying is sort of find this connection to yourself first and then the change comes from there, right? So
absolutely. Really trust that. It's really, really true. If you will be disciplined enough to put first what is most meaningful to you, everything else will fall in line with that. And you will be successful.
Thank you. Fabulous. Well, Dawn, this was absolutely brilliant. Once again, you can enter to win the giveaway for one of Dawn's DVDs. I'll put the links to her website, which has all of her kind of schedule and courses and more information in the show notes so that you can find her information. But thank you so much. This has been fun. And now I'm looking forward to either March or May. I want to say March because it's closer.
I want to see you in March.
Yes, I look forward to seeing you. Thank you
so much. Thank you, Ione. It's wonderful being with you.
My pleasure. Bye. Bye, everyone. Till next time.